Welcome back to The Deep Dive, where we take a mountain of context and distill it into pure, actionable insight, allowing you to quickly master a complex topic. Today, we are undertaking, well, a fascinating, yet often uncomfortable, psychological and professional autopsy. We're diving deep into the stunning career arc of James Charles.
It's truly a definitive study in the paradoxical nature of instant celebrity. I mean, here is a figure who, by age 19, had seemingly conquered the beauty industry.
Totally.
Named the first ever cover girl, cover boy, collaborating with titans like Kylie Jenner, walking the Met Gala carpet. He was, by all accounts, just unstoppable.
And yet somehow simultaneously, he became notorious for setting an unbroken YouTube record for the most subscribers lost in a single day. I mean, the scope of his success was only matched by the severity of his, self-inflicted crises.
Right, and that paradox is precisely what demands this deep dive. Our source material points toward a persistent, almost terminal flaw, a pattern of behavior suggesting someone who simply never learns from their mistakes.
They keep running the same crisis playbook.
Exactly, even when the stakes escalate dramatically.
So our mission today is to move beyond just the surface level drama. We need to analyze that pattern across 3 distinct periods of professional crisis.
We'll examine the specific allegations, dissect James Charles's consistent and ultimately, you could argue, disastrous strategy of response,
and try to determine why his incredible success eventually collapsed under the weight of his own actions. It's quite a story.
It really is. We'll start where the fame began, analyzing how he built this empire before, systematically dismantling it.
Okay, let's unpack the origin. Section 1, the meteoric rise and the strategic power of being extra. This is the pre-2019 era.
Yeah, what really stands out about James Charles's initial success is how he bypassed the traditional slow burn route of the early 2010s beauty and...
Right, he didn't spend years building an audience video by video, did he?
Not at all. His launch point was a perfectly engineered viral moment delivered primarily via Twitter, actually.
And it all started with a high school yearbook photo, which is almost unthinkable now in the, heavily produced influencer environment we see today.
Indeed. It became a piece of internet lore, almost legendary. He was savvy enough to realize that his initial senior photo didn't properly showcase his skills, specifically his highlight.
So he actually convinced them to do a retake.
He did. He convinced the photography company to allow him a retake.
And the famous detail, the thing that cemented his brand instantly, was that for the retake, he brought his own professional equipment.
He brought a ring light. His post, which went viral almost immediately, was this declaration of self-awareness and, frankly, ambition.
What did it say again?
It read, "So I retook my senior photos and brought my ring light with me, so my highlight would be popping. I love being extra."
That post wasn't just funny. It was like a perfect encapsulation of the new digitally native celebrity. It was strategic, self-deprecating, but also highly relatable to a generation obsessed with getting that perfect self.
And the traction was just phenomenal. We're talking over 28,000 retweets and 68,000 likes almost instantaneously. It just took off.
And that kind of velocity, that's what gets the attention of the major players, right? It wasn't just teenagers sharing it. A-list Hollywood noticed.
Absolutely. Zendaya, who was already a massive celebrity in her own right, she reposted the tweet, captioning it simply, "You win."
Wow. That level of celebrity endorsement just springing from a high school student's as vanity project. It's the definition of disruptive.
Totally. And the sources confirmed that this single viral post did more than just launch his career. It signaled a major cultural shift in the beauty industry itself.
How so?
Well, before James Charles, the major cosmetics brand, particularly those rooted in traditional advertising, had really operated on the premise that their market solely revolved around women. James Charles's viral success proved pretty definitively that beauty was non-gender territory now, and the demographic for high-end makeup extended far beyond their traditional target.
So the industry had to scramble to catch up with the digital conversation.
Pretty much. And the ultimate response was historic. Katy Perry, one of the main faces of CoverGirl at the time, announced James's appointment.
Katy Perry herself made the announcement.
Yes, on her Instagram. He was honored as the first ever cover boy. This placed him immediately in the highest echelon of celebrity endorsement. I mean, standing alongside names like Taylor Swift, Rihanna, Katy Perry herself.
He went from high school senior to A-list brand ambassador in months.
The acceleration was just unprecedented.
What's fascinating about that moment is the validation it provided, It confirmed that the traditional gatekeepers, the major brands, were now taking cues directly from viral, consumer-driven content, not just ads.
Exactly. And James Charles was exceptional at capitalizing on that momentum. Once that initial surge of followers, over 90,000 almost overnight, hit his YouTube channel, he posted with rigorous consistency.
And the views followed.
Oh, yeah. His initial videos consistently garnered hundreds of thousands of views, and collaborations quickly started reaching into the millions.
Okay, so beyond the technical mastery of makeup, which, a lot of influencers possess, what was the specific ingredient in his personality that kept...
It was what the source terms his status as an all-round entertaining individual, not just someone doing tutorial. He cultivated this willingness to be completely intentionally cringe.
Yeah. Okay, explain cringe.
He joked around, he made fun of himself constantly, and he never seemed to take his own fame too seriously, at least in public.
That seems kind of counterintuitive when we talk about a high glamour brand like CoverGirl.
It does, but it worked. We see it in examples like his decision to post a cappella arrangement of some folk song. He knew it was awkward.
He acknowledged it.
Oh, yeah. He introduced it by stating, "This is really, really cringe, but I think this is absolutely hilarious." This self-awareness did two things. It made him feel accessible despite his rapid rise to fame. And it kept him firmly in the entertainment category, not just education. People stayed for the personality, not just the product recommendation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this personality really peaked around 2018, 2019, didn't it?
Yeah.
Driven significantly by that big collaborative venture.
Yes, the strategic creation of the Sister Squad in 2018. This was a critical power move. It brought James together with two other massive names at the time, Emma Chamberlain and the twin brothers, Ethan and Grayson Dolan.
So it's like a merger of audiences.
Absolutely. An effective merger of three distinct multi-million subscriber audiences. You had beauty, comedy, and vlogging all mashed together.
How did that dynamic translate into content? What made it so explosive?
The chemistry was just chaos, basically. And chaos generated clicks back then. Their content wasn't polished. It was super high energy, youthful, highly interactive.
What kind of stuff?
Mukbang videos, those eating challenges, shopping challenges where they bought each other's outfits, and occasionally makeup tutorials thrown in. The sources capture snippets that really illustrate this manic energy.
Like that quote from the mukbang. "We got all the food. Should we put our hands in for the mukbang? Yeah, let's bang, get that dirty hand out here. I don't want to get pink eye." What are we saying? Shut up, one.
Exactly. It's loud, it's fast-paced, utterly unscripted, and the numbers just don't lie. James's individual video views went from maybe a couple million to comfortably passing the 10 million mark per video during this period.
Wow. Exponential growth.
Yeah, fueled by shared audiences and constant cross-promotion. It was smart.
And this kind of growth obviously opened the most exclusive doors. He started working with the highest levels of the beauty and celebrity world, including Kylie Jenner.
And perhaps even more importantly, he formed this close mentorship relationship with Tati Westbrook.
Right, the established beauty guru.
Yeah, Tati was a veteran, older, more established influencer, and she was apparently actively coaching him on how to handle the massive pressure and scrutiny that comes with that level of sudden internet success. She was supposed to be the anchor, keep him grounded.
Which makes what happens later even more dramatic.
Absolutely.
But the ultimate achievement of this period, the moment that marked the absolute dizzying peak of his career, was his debut at the Met Gala in 2019.
That's the moment. Walking that carpet, attending arguably the most exclusive event in the fashion and celebrity world, it solidified his transition from internet personality to genuine A-list celebrity status. He is a phenomenon.
But as we know, the higher you climb,
the harder the fall. Yeah.
And the fall began almost immediately, starting with these subtle signs of entitlement before just exploding into a historic catastrophe. Let's pivot now to the first major professionals.
Yeah, so before Tati's infamous video dropped, there was already a clear, publicly documented pattern that kind of served as the foundational warning sign for everything that followed.
Which was what exactly?
His open preference for and admitted pursuit of straight men.
And he didn't hide this preference, right? He talked about it openly.
Yeah, he stated, "A boy who is straight love, that for you, that's easy. It's easier than you would think."
Yeah.
On the surface, maybe it sounds like a joke, but the sources show how this particular focus really raised internal alarm bells about his behavior and, frankly, his boundaries.
Okay.
And precisely that dynamic became the core issue in the Gage Gomez drama, which we can kind of view as the dress rehearsal for crisis management.
Gage Gomez, the straight Instagram. They were photographed together.
That's the one. It led to dating.
And James immediately shut those down publicly, but he used really inflammatory language, didn't he? Calling Gage a gusting con artist who played me for months on end.
Yeah, it was an aggressive, preemptive strike against the narrative. Very defensive.
But Gage fired back. He didn't deny accepting James's hospitality, but he challenged the context, the framing of it.
Right. Gage claimed James pressured him, despite Gage repeatedly confirming he was heterosexual. The direct quote from Gage was pretty telling. James, 99.9, even 100% of the times, goes after heterosexual men. This framed James's actions not as a misunderstanding, but as a predatory pattern.
And here we see the first critical error in James's recurring response strategy, don't we? Instead of maybe taking the L, apologizing for misinterpreting things, or just letting the story fade,
he chose immediate escalation. He deployed the classic influencer crisis weapon, the lengthy Nate's app-style tweet, trying to debunk every single claim point by point.
trying to control the narrative completely.
Exactly. And while he managed to suppress that specific drama, he had established this, disastrous pattern.
Right.
Always deny, always counterattack, and never let the facts be murky, even if clarification only draws more attention to the whole thing.
So that prelude really set the stage perfectly for the true crisis. Tati Westbrook, his supposed mentor, became the critical domino.
Yeah, releasing the video that defined his first cancellation.
Yeah.
The aptly named bias.
And the central narrative Tati presented wasn't really about the vitamin promoting, even though that was stated the fall.
No, not really. The core damning accusation was about the constant attempt to coerce straight men, which Tati presented as this moral failing born of celebrity entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
She said something like, "Oh my God, you tried to trick a straight man into thinking he's gay yet again, and somehow you're the victim."
Oof. And she backed this up with a very specific, very damaging anecdote from her birth.
Yes. She claimed James had propositioned their waiter. And when Tati reminded James that the waiter was straight, James's alleged response was the quote that instantly became synonymous with his downfall.
The infamous line.
"Doesn't matter, I'm a celebrity."
That quote suggested an arrogance so profound it implied his fame just superseded basic human boundaries, consent, everything. It horrified his audience, didn't it?
It absolutely did. It seemed to confirm the predatory pattern Gage Gomez had hinted at. The internet just seized on.
And then the waiter himself, Sam Cooke, came forward.
He did. And his testimony, however, provided a layer of nuance that actually complicated Tati's more black and white narrative.
What did he say?
Well, Sam explained he was bicurious at the time, never really acted on it. He confirmed he did go to James's hotel room, curious about the interaction, and they apparently made out for about an hour. So the initial encounter wasn't forced.
Okay, so it wasn't coercion initially.
Not initially, but the issue shifted immediately after. Sam decides he wasn't interested in pursuing anything further and told James he wouldn't be, which, should have been the end of it.
But the entitlement alleged by Tati then seemed to manifest.
According to Sam, yes. James apparently ignored the rejection. Sam explained that James continued pressuring him over subsequent weeks, even offering to fly him out to L.A.
Wow.
In Sam's view, James just refused to accept his clarified sexuality. Sam noted that James insisted he must be bisexual or gay and still attracted to him, despite being told explicitly that he wasn't interested.
So the core complaint shifted from the initial interaction to the persistent, boundary-ignoring pressure.
Exactly. That freaked Sam out, as he put it.
So when Tati, the trusted mentor figure, broadcasted this entire chain of events, the alleged entitlement, the waiter story, Sam's subsequent experience, to her massive audience.
The backlash was instant and totally unprecedented. It wasn't just backlash. It was a cancellation event of historical proportion. James lost more than 3.1 million followers in just 1 week.
And that record.
We need to analyze the technical reality of this number. He set an unbroken, defining record for the most YouTube subscribers lost in a single day, 1.26.
1.26 million people hitting unsubscribe in 24 hours. That's like the population of a small... It just speaks to the sheer velocity of algorithmic amplification during one of these mass shunning.
Absolutely. The speed of the fall was accelerated by YouTube's own recommendation. As Tati's video trended globally, all the subsequent outrage videos analyzing James' behavior were pushed to millions more users, leading to this cascade effect.
A digital stampede.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The more attention the drama received, the faster the unsubscribe rate spiraled.
It really seemed like a career ending. The narrative was cemented, entitled predatory finish. But this is where the story gets really complex, does. James Charles didn't just survive this collapse, he somehow leveraged.
Yeah, if Section 2 was about the sheer severity of the fall, Section 3 is all about the strategic genius, or maybe just the cold calculation of his recovery. Despite losing a record number of followers, James somehow engineered a successful comeback just a couple of months later.
And his response video, No More Lies, it was a complete pivot from the standard tearful influencer apology. It felt very calm, highly tactful.
It really was. It was a masterclass in separating emotion from fact, or at least appearing. James consciously avoided the tears, the melodramatic lighting, the self-pity. Instead, he approached Tati's accusations point by point.
Like a legal rebuttal.
Almost. Presenting himself as the rational, aggrieved party being unfairly targeted by, emotional hysteria.
Yep. He didn't rely on sentiment. He relied on receipts He counterattacked with verifiable evidence, providing his own damning screenshot to support his timeline of events with Sam Cooke.
And this was crucial. By selectively sharing those communications, James was able to suggest that Sam Cooke had maybe misrepresented his interests, at least initially. It undermined the simple James preyed on a straight man narrative.
It complicated the facts.
Exactly, which in a viral drama is often enough to create doubt and just stop the cancellation momentum dead in its tracks.
But the real strategic maneuver, the big play, was pivoting the entire narrative away from his own behavior toward this idea of a larger industry conspiracy.
He turned a personal scandal into an industry war. James managed to shift the focus by exposing the alleged involvement of Jeffree Star, another titanic yet often hugely controversial figure in the beauty space.
Right. He claimed Jeffree had masterminded a smear campaign against him, working with Tati.
Yes.
Why did that specific accusation targeting Jeffree Star work so powerfully to save Charles?
Because Jeffree Star was already so deeply controversial himself, and this new narrative allowed viewers to engage in this highly entertaining and really messy power struggle rather than focusing just on the murky morality of James's act.
Right. People love drama.
Viewers love complexity. And suddenly, they weren't just judging a potentially predatory influencer. They were watching a Game of Thrones level battle for control of the beauty world. It turned James from just a villain into a potential victim of a professional attack.
So by dismantling the credibility of his primary accusers, Tati, by maybe showing her vulnerability to manipulation, and Sam Cooke, by counter-evidencing their communications, James effectively walked away from the original allegation, mostly unscathed.
Pretty much. Absolutely. And the irony here is just astounding. Tati Westbrook, unable to handle the intense scrutiny that followed and dealing with the complexity of her own role in the alleged smear campaign.
Yeah.
She crumbled professionally.
Her career basically ended.
Effectively ended in that saga, yeah.
Meanwhile, James didn't just survive. He actually flourished after.
It's wild. He regained 2 million of his lost subscribers and ended up tripling his overall views over the course of the next. Tripling.
So the lesson James Charles seemed to internalize from this experience was, well, profoundly toxic, maybe, but professionally reinforced.
It seemed to be. Strategic aggression, immediate denial, and discrediting your accusers are viable paths to bouncing back from near-total cancellation. He proved his formula for survival work, which must have validated his ego and his methods enormously.
But that success instilled a dangerous, false confidence, didn't it? If we stick to the central thesis that he never learns from his mistake, his ability to survive the Tati saga didn't mean his problematic pattern of behavior stopped.
No, it just taught him that he was perhaps invincible, which set the stage perfectly for the next and far more serious collapse.
Right, so the underlying pattern reemerged in early 2021, and this time the stakes were just fatally higher. The setup actually began with a casual, almost impulsive admission on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast that instantly betrayed any supposed caution he might have.
What did he say there? He was trying to discuss his boundaries regarding dating older versus younger men. He admitted he wasn't physically attracted to older guys. Okay, fair enough. But then he clarified the absolute youngest he would date was like 18, 19 that looks a little bit older, or like 24 that like has a young personality.
That specific phrasing.
That statement made publicly was just a profound lapse in judgment. It provided an immediate problematic frame of reference for the controversy that followed just weeks later. As many observers noted online, that statement aged like milk.
Because just 1 month later, February 2021, the serious underage allegation broke.
It did. This allegation came from a 16-year-old TikTok named Isaiah.
Okay, detail the core claim here, because the specific details are incredibly damning, aren't they?
They are. Isaiah claimed that James had added him back on Snapchat and that the conversation rapidly became sexualized. Isaiah mentioned seeing a bathroom light in the background of one of James's snaps, which James allegedly seized upon to make the conversation very sexual, making Isaiah distinctly uncomfortable.
And the situation escalated beyond just suggestive flirting.
Yes. Isaiah alleged that James started asking for inappropriate pictures. And when Isaiah showed hesitation, James allegedly sent multiple explicit images of his own body. Sort of effort to normalize it, maybe coax a reciprocal exchange.
Okay, that's already crossing a line.
Yes.
But the truly critical, horrifying moment centers around the age measure itself.
Right. Isaiah claimed that when he revealed his actual age 16, while James was 21 at the time, James's alleged response was to prioritize his own thwarted desire over the legality or morality of the situation. He allegedly responded, "Oh, but I didn't get to see the yet," meaning Isaiah's body.
Wow. If true, that quote suggests a direct continuation of the entitlement we saw in the Tati saga, but now directed at a minor, and with just devastating clarity.
The allegation continued. Isaiah claimed James disregarded the age disclosure entirely and continued badgering him for images, specifically asking for pictures of body hair and him flexing his muscles.
So the implication was clear. James was allegedly fully aware of the minor's age and continued to pressure him despite that knowledge.
That was the allegation.
James, relying on his apparently triumphant strategy from 2019, once again defaulted to the Notes app denial, didn't
he? He ran the exact same playbook. This time, it failed spectacularly. His defense was structured just like the Tati response.
Right.
First, claimed that Isaiah immediately said he was 18.
Right.
Second, claimed that once he found out the real age, 16, James stopped flirting immediately, apologized profusely, and unfriended him right away. He tried to present himself again as the responsible party who immediately shut down the conversation upon realizing the age discrepancy.
But Isaiah had screenshots, apparently, and he refuted James's timeline immediately.
He did. Isaiah countered, stating that James never even asked his age until after Isaiah himself disclosed he was 16. Furthermore, he claimed James not only didn't apologize, but continued the pressure, allegedly saying something truly chilling. "I wish the timeline could speed up so you can be 18.
Ooh, that's bad. The lack of a clear, verifiable timeline, though, that must have complicated things for the public initially. Why was verification impossible?
Because the conversations took place on Snapchat. The platform is designed for message disappearance. So a full, complete, unedited time was basically impossible to reconstruct definitively. And the initial inclination of many people might have been to side with the highly successful celebrity, assuming he wouldn't risk everything for a flirtation like this.
But unlike 2019, where James was able to successfully dismantle the credibility of a single accused cook, this time the defense crumbled under the weight of sheer repetition.
This is where the pattern recognition really hit hardest. The allegations started becoming a repeat occurrence. Other, maybe smaller outrage influencers began coming forward with their own stories, reinforcing Isaiah's claim that James consistently pushed boundaries regarding age.
There was that example from late 2020 where an individual confirmed James did an age check. Okay, but then days later allegedly sent an unsolicited explicit picture described as a full-ass pic.
Right. The accumulation of these claims pushed the drama past just celebrity feud territory and into seriously troubling moral territory.
The narrative was no longer just about entitlement. It was about alleged predatory behavior towards minors.
Exactly. This accumulation of claims meant that even without a perfect Snapchat timeline, the preponderance of evidence, coupled with James's history, just decimated his credibility this time around.
And this time, the consequences weren't just subscriber losses. They were real, professional death blows.
They were terminal business consequences. James was removed from YouTube's partner program, meaning he lost direct monetization revenue from his own video. Huge financial hit.
Okay.
Morphe, the massive makeup brand he was intrinsically linked with, dropped him instantly as a brand ambassador, ending an incredibly lucrative partnership.
Wow.
And he was even kicked off his own reality TV show, Instant Influence, which had been built entirely around his fame and persona.
That's a collapse of all three pillars of his professional structure: platform monetization, brand partnerships, and self-produced content. A total wipeout.
It was. With his career infrastructure just collapsing around him, James resorted to the ultimate influencer Hail Mary, the formal apology.
And this video was immediately perceived as, monotonous, utterly insincere.
Yeah, widely panned. The video, which was clearly designed to frame him as somehow morally righteous, despite the accusations, failed because his core defense was just pure self-pity. He tried to garner sympathy by blaming his actions on his own inadequacy.
What did he say?
He claimed he was driven by desperation for relationships, saying, "It is ridiculously embarrassing to admit this, but I think I have to. And that is that I'm desperate."
And the audience, witnessing the gravity of the accusations, the severe professional fallout, they didn't buy the narrative of a desperately lonely celebrity.
Not at all. The apology was widely seen as tactical manipulation rather than genuine remorse. Just another calculated move.
He then announced a 90-day hiatus to reflect, which, again, based on past behavior,
was widely interpreted as him simply hoping the public noise would die down and that he could reemerge unscathed, just as he had after the Tati saga in 2019. Fool me once, you know.
But the data showed this time was different, didn't it? His video views plummeted.
They did. From comfortably over 10 million, he was now struggling to even hit the 4 million mark consistently. And while he did continue making content after the hiatus, his reputation was fundamentally damaged. He was no longer the untouchable comeback.
So he had successfully fought off the first cancellation by attacking his accuser's credibility, but in the second, his inability to change the underlying pattern and his insistence on controlling the narrative only reinforced the public's worst suspicions,
leading to his first true professional collapse. But the final fatal mistake, unbelievably, was still ahead.
Right. Let's transition now to the final controversy, the one that had nothing to do with makeup or sexuality, but everything to do with moral judgment and association.
Yeah. If the 2021 scandal caused professional paralysis, the 2025 incident caused total brand fatality. This controversy centered entirely on the toxic company James Charles chose to.
Okay, this begins with the story of Kayla Malik. Outline the context here, because this wasn't just social media drama. This involved confirmed criminal behavior.
Absolutely critical distinction. In April 2025, Kayla Malik, an influencer herself, released this incredibly detailed, powerful 2-part video series outlining the emotional and physical abuse she endured from her ex-boyfriend, a guy named Evan Johnson.
Okay.
Crucially, Evan Johnson wasn't just some figure of online gossip. He was arrested and subsequently found guilty of domestic assault against Kayla on May 7th, 2025. This had legal confirmation.
So this event had court validation, real-world consequence. It elevated it far beyond the he said, she said nature of previous controversies involving James. How did James Charles get entangled?
The connection came through Zach Sailors, who was apparently a former friend of Evan Johnson.
Yeah.
Zach publicly accused James of maintaining a close association with Evan throughout the entire investigation.
Okay.
And shockingly, actively coaching him on how to downplay and navigate the legal fallout from the abuse charge.
Actively coaching the abuser. What were the specific details of this alleged?
Zach claimed he overheard James on FaceTime with Evan, and the alleged advice was just chillingly cold and calculating regarding Evan's potential consequence. James was allegedly heard telling Evan, well, you didn't lose anything, Evan, out of this. If anything, you won. You got away from the psycho. She is the psychopath.
Wow. That quote suggests James was not only ignoring the severity of the verified abuse, but actively encouraging the abuser to view his conviction as a victory and the victim as mentally unstable.
Precisely. James was reportedly encouraging Evan to frame the severe abuse as simple lies manufactured by Kayla purely for clout and views. So James inserted himself directly into a narrative involving verified criminal behavior and apparently chose to align himself with the abuser and against the victim.
Evan Johnson was sentenced on May 7th, 2025. James, true to form, deployed his mandatory defense mechanism, releasing a weak denial on TikTok the very next day, May 8th.
Predictable, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Insisted he only knew Evan briefly, condemned the acts generally, boilerplate stuff, and claimed, I do not support Evan Johnson in any way, shape.
But by this point, public trust in James Charles was basically non-existent.
Zero. Given his history of lying and attempting to control the narrative, the timing felt highly suspicious, very reactive. His denial felt hollow and calculated purely to protect his own brand rather than expressing any genuine condemnation or empathy.
And this time, he couldn't rely on the murkiness of Snapchat messages or the complexity of a beauty guru war to save him. Kayla Malik provided definitive, irrefutable evidence of his self-serving moral bank.
She did. Kayla released 3 separate, quite lengthy 10-minute TikToks that completely exposed James's self-interest and profound lack of empathy in the situation.
What was the nature of the proof provided?
Well, first, she proved James had a vested romantic or at least flirtatious interest in Evan long before the breakup and the abuse revel. She provided screenshots showing James was DMing Evan with explicit flirtatious messages, calling him so beautiful, even while Evan and Kayla were literally together on vacation in Hawaii.
So they were planning meetings behind her back?
It appeared so, completely disrespecting Kayla's relationship. This established that James wasn't just some casual friend offering misguided support. He was actively attempting to pursue Evan while Evan was in a relationship, and later, while he was facing serious abuse allegations.
Okay, that's good enough. But the final nail in the coffin, the moment that
was the evidence of his utter lack of empathy toward Kayla's abuse itself. Kayla had apparently confided in James after the breakup, telling him she was planning to film this extensive 30-part series detailing the severe emotional and physical abuse she'd endured from Evan.
A deeply vulnerable her. And what was James's alleged immediate response to hearing about this trauma?
His alleged immediate reaction, completely disregarding the horrific abuse Kayla had just described, was horrifyingly cold and purely transactional. What happened? Can I have him now?
Oh my God, can I have him now? That single sentence just...
Yeah.
It encapsulates the entire pattern of entitlement that seems to have driven his downfall, doesn't it? His desire superseded any concept of moral responsibility, respect for victim, or even basic...
It seemed to, yeah. The public reaction was instantaneous and absolutely decisive. Viewers saw this not just as another instance of maybe predatory behavior toward men, but as a total lack of respect for women, and particularly for victims of abuse. It shattered any remaining pretense of his public persona.
And the consequences this time were truly terminal, going way beyond temporary subscriber dips or view count fluctuations.
They were terminal because he lost the crucial credibility required to function as a public entertainer, and his video views tanked permanently. We're talking going from struggling to hit 4 million per video down to barely hitting 1 million, if that.
He became publicly and just inextricably branded as the friend of a convicted. There's no coming back from that. This leads us directly to the source material's definitive conclusion regarding failure, doesn't it? The primary reason for his ultimate collapse was his chronic inability to simply...
It's the counterintuitive lesson of digital crisis management, isn't it? If he hadn't felt the compulsive need to respond, to clarify, to control things every single time, Gage Gomez way back in 2019, right up to his weak defense regarding Evan Johnson in 2025, most allegations, particularly the murky ones, likely would have just fizzled out over time.
His compulsion to manage and control the narrative ultimately provided the exact evidence, the receipts, the toxic text messages, suspicious timing of his response to accelerate and solidify his final permanent collapse. He essentially exhausted his right to yet another comeback. So what does this entire trajectory, this whole saga, tell us about the nature of modern celebrity and digital? Where do we land? Hashtag tag outro.
Well, we've thoroughly explored the life cycle of a career built on, incredible viral hits and seemingly destroyed by pattern recognition. The three major controversies, the Tati saga with the coercion narrative, the underage allegations, and finally the abuser association. They show a clear, toxic escalation, and it seems driven by a consistent underlying cue.
Yeah, the pattern is undeniable. In that first crisis, James learned that an aggressive, tactical defense actually worked. It allowed him to walk away victorious, even triple his view. He confirmed, in his mind, that discrediting your accusers is a successful strategy.
But his inability, or perhaps unwillingness, to change the underlying pattern of behavior, the entitlement, the apparent lack of empathy, the aggressive boundary pushing, meant that when subsequent, much more serious allegations arose, that same successful defense strategy from 2019 became the very mechanism for his own terminal failure.
Because the public had learned his playbook.
Exactly. The public had learned to anticipate and document his attempts at manipulation. He couldn't run the same play twice, especially when the stakes involve minors and verified abuse.
It provides a really sobering, counterintuitive lesson for any public figure operating. Sometimes, especially in the face of morally complex facts or allegations, silence is genuinely a safer, more sustainable strategy than self-sabotage through frantic defense.
Absolutely. His impulse to clarify, to deny, to control the narrative ultimately provided the final necessary proof needed to shatter his reputation beyond any hope of repair.
The effort required to craft and maintain a compelling, larger-than-life online persona is obviously immense. But we've witnessed here how incredibly quickly a few ill-considered private messages or really toxic associations brought to light precisely because the subject felt the impulse to defend himself can dismantle that entire structure overnight.
It really can.
It leaves us with a provocative thought as we conclude this deep dive, doesn't it? We've analyzed the complete life cycle of a public figure who is canceled repeatedly. You have to consider how much of the downfall narrative is ultimately driven by the public demand for necessary accountability versus the subject's own fatal inability to simply stay out of the spotlight and cease providing the very evidence against themselves.
It's a fascinating question. It's a harsh reminder, really, that in the digital age, your private toxicity is perhaps always on a collision course with your public brand. You can only keep them separate for so long.
Food for deep thought. Thank you for joining.